get started, one of the things that I thought about as we were watching that, which was a little dated, was how indelible the memory of that still must be to both of you. And while you've both distinguished yourself in other ways besides football and had a life balance, I do wonder, Willie, if we could start with you, what you think of when you think of that day, both in terms of the specifics on the field and maybe what it meant in your life.
Well, we've had a chance to, I think, watch that about 2 months ago, and it reflects on the growth of the league, how the game's changed, the reality that life goes on. So you'll see so many individuals in that film who passed at different points along the way. So you're very thankful that you, Jan, myself, all of you could be here today to be able to reflect on that. But it just shows the growth of a game, the fact that the teams play tonight, and the Chiefs played Green Bay in the first Super Bowl, and all that has changed, and none of us could have thought that this game could have grown as immensely as it has grown, because it's still just a game played on a 50-yard field, 100 yards long, with 11 people on both sides. But that being said, it has become much more advanced than that and takes on its own life force, as tonight will be in all the games during the course of the year.
Willie made reference to the dimensions of the field, which reminded me as we were watching those clips. Of course, at that time, the goalposts were at the goal line, and after that game, Carl Eller suggested you were the MVP of the Super Bowl because once the Chiefs crossed the 50-yard line, you were going to score because Jan Stenerud was going to kick a field goal. Didn't look like very good conditions that day, though. Was that a factor at all for you?
When I was watching that game, I do remember having mud cleats on my left heel because footing is so important when you kick, and I was really concerned. And I think when you saw the field, it was really worse than what I remember. So that being the Super Bowl, they had a tarp on the field, but there's several holes in it, quite a few holes, I think, the way it looked. So that was a problem. But the cleats held up because all my field goal kicks were from the muddy part of the field. See, Willie and I, when we looked at he talked about people that has died, and I was in the end of the clip there. Some of Jerry Mays, Buck Buchanan, and Aaron Brown, they were 3 of the 4 at defensive line. Curdy was the 4th. And that died a long time ago, and they were really my heroes when I came here. Willie and I were rookies in 1967 together. Willie became maybe the greatest linebacker in pro football, middle linebacker. Was the first black middle linebacker. That was a big deal at that time. I came at a good time because the league had just expanded a couple of years before to 40 people instead of 38, then it was 35, 33 people. So I could actually make room for a kicker that couldn't do anything else to do that. So the timing was right. But even in those days, even though the game has progressed, television has made such a big difference, but it was a really big deal. The articles, some of the papers I have at home now are kind of yellowish, some of them from 50 years ago, but there were 70 million people in America watching that game. The population was 225 million. Now you talk about over 100 million watching the game, but the population is 3.5. So the percentage was about the same. I think I remember reading also that the water usage during the halftime in Kansas City, that particular halftime, that lasted about half an hour, I think. We almost ran out of water because people went to the restroom at the halftime. And everybody was watching the game. But looking back, well, it was a fabulous team. I remember there was a guy on the sideline that kept bugging me. He wanted a warm-up jacket. And he said, "Can I have that jacket after the game?" I didn't know what it was, but I figured it had to be fairly important to be on the sideline. But I remember I was so intense in trying to do, even though in those days the center played, he snapped the ball in field goals. Quarterback was the holder. It was all warm-up dance. So what I did on the sideline was just staying around and trying to stay warm. There was nothing I really did except for trying to concentrate really hard on what at least I could do my job the best of my ability. It turned out after the game that guy was a guy called Pat O'Brien. He played New Rockney and went over the keeper. So I tried to figure out who that guy was. That was a long answer for a pretty short question. Anyway, I've enjoyed Willie's friendship for 50 years. Great player, great friend, and he had an awful lot to do with the success of our teams in the late 60s and early 70s. And also, the Kansas City Chiefs fans, when we got here, the Chiefs have played the Super Bowl one, although we lost. The town was on fire like it is today. We came here at a good time.
You just spoke to this a little bit, Jan, but I've always been struck by the friendships that you all maintained. So many of you show up at the Pro Football Hall of Fame every year, of course, because you're in it. But Willie, the first time I met you was at Bobby Bell's college graduation from the University of Minnesota when Bobby was 78 years old, or something along those lines. And I do wonder, as we think about this, how much those bonds made a difference on your football team. You guys were unusually close across a lot of different sorts of lines. I wonder if that was part of what made you champions.
I think the uniqueness of sport is that what it does is to bind people together from backgrounds from across the world. That's in Norway, as far as Norway is concerned. So Bobby Bell, who graduated with his degree from the University of Minnesota 2 years ago, he was 76. His father, whose name was Pink, they grew up, nicknamed Pink, grew up in Shelby, North Carolina. Segregation was what segregation was at that time. Bobby had the opportunity to go to the University of Minnesota. 1959, his father gave him a watch and wanted his son to graduate from college. So there were many of us who came from historically black colleges when opportunities were not there for the National Football League. The American Football League started giving us opportunity. So the reality of opportunity or diversity or legacy is that what diversity can do is to make things better. Is to offer opportunity for others to do and to go forward. So all of that became pieces of this unique puzzle that still has a chance to show America how to be better, how to have people from different places, time, and origin work in a different manner across political spectrum. We at that time had individuals who were white from the South, and Mr. Wallace was down there then, I would say. We have others from the East, the West, who were from the historical black colleges who might have a little bit more stern view. You had Black Panthers out in the West Coast. So you had all these philosophical realities, but what occurred is that once you showed up here, you had an understanding that what we were trying to do was get the ring. Whatever your philosophies were, whatever things you want to be a part of your journey, we appreciate who you are, but you need to leave that at the door. We're after something that's going to last as we sit here this afternoon. 50 years later, we're still after another one. So obviously, we understood how to get things done in the midst of change that occurred then and still needs to occur now.
It makes me think of, Michael, why you took such interest in this topic, and what inspired you, other than the obvious, what inspired you to tell this tale?
I think it was, the '69 Chiefs were a historically significant team for some of the reasons that Willie alluded to. First pro football team in history in which a majority of the starters were African American. And the team had such an extraordinary story. And it felt as though this year, the 50th anniversary, was going to be the last chance to tell that story at a time when people were going to be prepared to hear it, at a time when most of the team was still around to talk about it. And I had tried several years ago to persuade a New York publisher to do a full-length history of the team and do one of the long tomes that I tend to write. And it was a Midwestern team that won only one Super Bowl, and there just wasn't enough interest then to justify it. So a couple of years ago, I just thought, this is it. We got to do this. And the good people at Andrews McNeil were willing to do it. And the great photographer Rod Hanna had all these pictures in a safe deposit box in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And I reached out to him, and he was willing to share his photographs and be part of the project. And I think that, I allude to this in the book, any city is going to embrace a champion, right? That's just the way sports works. But there was something particularly significant about this team. Its integration, its diversity, its innovation under Hank Stram, succeeding at this point in time, at a time of such civil unrest and racial strife in the country. And I do think Willie is right. It set an example, not just in sports, but in the culture at large, of people from different backgrounds coming and working together. And the people who would criticize sports say, oh, it's not that simple out there in the real world. And true enough, there's a different set of circumstances and challenges in the real world. But I also think it's true that the example set in sports can change attitudes. One of the things I wrote about in America's Game was that people in Boston who might not be able to hear Martin Luther King Jr. could still learn to respect Bill Russell. People in Cleveland who couldn't abide Malcolm X might learn to respect Jim Brown, and in that way have their consciousness raised to a certain level. And in the end, it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. And I just thought the '69 Chiefs was a great story of athletic triumph, a great cultural story, and I knew this was the last chance to do it. So another long answer.
That's what we're looking for. You mentioned Hank Stram just now, and we see the image of Hank Stram on the cover of the book, and that was sort of the enduring image at the end of the film. And I feel it would be interesting for everybody to hear everybody's perspectives from up here about Hank. And Michael, we'll finish with you, but I want you to, when you do start, I want you to discuss what he's holding in his hand there and how that speaks to his overall persona. Jan, I remember you telling me about coming here in 1967 and working out at Slope Park, and your holder was Hank Stram, which always made me think about picturing Andy Reid holding for Cairo Santos and Harrison Butker, just sort of a different era. But Hank had a lot to do with you being here, and what his influence on you?
Excuse me, I was drafted by, of course I only kicked 1 year in college, and I was a skier, and I'm not going to tell you how I did in the football, that's another story, but what happened was I kicked a 59-yard field goal in my first season. It took us a week to find out that I broke the pro record by 3 yards and the college record by 5 yards. And then, a few weeks later, I get a telegram that my name addressed to Montana State University Athletic Department. Congratulations, you've been drafted in the 3rd round of the AFL redshirt draft. Took me a little while to figure out exactly what that meant. But anyway, what it meant was that I could actually stay in college one more fall quarter because the coach wanted to convince me, or he wanted me on the team, that was one thing I'm sure, but also, I also had a chance to get drafted by the NFL, which I did. At the end of that, graduated the next fall quarter. And the NFL had a special draft, was about 30 of us in the draft as AFL future draft choices. And I was the first one picked. And I was picked by Atlanta. But in the meantime, I had met Bobby Better, who came out this evening, Tom Pratt, and Tommy O'Boyle, the great head of personnel in those days. And I met Hank Stram, and they flew me to a game in Orange Bowl to watch them play the last regular season game in 1966 before Super Bowl I. And I made up my mind to get drafted. I am not going to kick in front of Hank because my stock is bound to go down because I think I'm pretty good. But it was no contest. He found me and he had me out there kicking right away. He talked me into it. But anyway, after meeting him and also Lamar Hunt, there was no question at all where I wanted to go. I wanted to become the Kansas City Chief in the first place because, and then Hank, before training camp in 1967, he came out to practice field when I was kicking. He didn't. On half a dozen occasions, he wanted, the hash marks were out wide then. So he wanted to see how my accuracy was from the right hash mark, from the middle, from the left, what distances. And so if I had a bad day practicing, he would try to figure out what caused that, so he could understand the swing of kicking the football. So he was very interested in that. he wanted to learn so he can also help me as I progress in my kicking career. But I always enjoyed Hank. He could be difficult at times. He was the mentor. There's no question about that. But I cared for him a lot, and I did exactly what he asked me to do. Never questioned him. Sometimes we wanted a little bit. But whatever he wanted to do, I tried to do it. I really got to like him a lot, talked to him a lot after football. And Hank Strand was a very important part, or maybe the most important part of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Willie, what was the impact of Hank on your life, and what do you remember most about him?
It's somewhat interesting because of the reality, as I spoke about, with race being what it was, segregation being what it was. You high energy people, and you tend to clash. And so, with that, we got along well, but we clashed. Because I clashed with a lot of people at that time because of the reality that I saw. But also, I was a graduate of Morgan State University. The important thing to me was to graduate from college so I can go eyeball to eyeball to be equal with anybody. So it became a reality that it was important for me to appreciate what skills you have, but you must appreciate the ones I have. Now, to give an audience an example, in 1967, with a business degree from Morgan State College, that first September, I was at UMKC in this city working on the MBA. And I had a head injury I had taken incomplete, but that's just showing the process that you had that others might not have had. And the thing that happened with Hank and Jan in the offense was that was his milieu. He enjoyed that. He didn't do much with defense. So with defense, we had Tom Pratt, we had Tom Dennis, and you had other guys who worked with you to mold and model. So Hank, with his mind, created as much of a moving partner from an offensive standpoint, somebody called a stack from a defensive standpoint. We could play a 3-4-4-3. We could play a zone on one side of the field, man-to-man on the other. We kept the same 11 people on the field for the whole game. We could take away most anything. And any time that was a play that worked, it wasn't going to work again because we would make the adjustment. So the whole joy was seeing the quality of people's minds that came to this thing, which is a game that those of you will see this evening. And I know I and Jan and others of you will hope they can be somewhat better, because in our view, the game isn't as complex as people make it appear to be. It just becomes one of understanding how to reach for excellence and how to do it in very minute sample size on a continuum.
You can see why I enjoy talking to Willie. We had a lot of good conversation over the years. This is a very special man.
Michael, just your thoughts on Hank, and I'm sorry to nudge you so much towards that rolled up thing in his hand, but what would you tell about that?
Hank was an obsessive. You know, all football coaches are obsessive, and Hank particularly so. Len Dawson has spoken about when Hank would go into restaurants, they put out paper napkins instead of cloth napkins because Hank would be scrawling plays on napkins. I talked to a few of his assistants when I was working on this book, and one of the things that I can remember being curious about when I was growing up is Hank had the rolled up game plan in his hands, and he was always moving around. But I asked a few of the assistants, I said, I never see him looking at the game plan. And the assistant said, no, that was just more of a prop, you know? Because when he had the game plan, forgive me. When he had the game plan, he would point, it was almost like a conductor with a baton. And one of his assistants said, Hank knew the game plan so well, he didn't need to look at it. He would often make suggestions. Len Dawson was familiar with the game plan. It wasn't like he was looking through the pages in the third quarter going, what should I call? He knew it all so well. And the one other thing I would say is, and I think you guys can speak to this, Stu Stram said something, his son. He said, Hank obsessed with winning, not competing, winning. And so he would go to almost any ends, whether it was football, racquetball, golf. He would do anything he possibly could because he grew up hard on the streets of Gary, Indiana, and what he learned was athletic excellence was a way to keep him out of the factories. And so that compulsion, that obsession, that almost Ahab and the whale level of compulsion was one of the things that made the Chiefs great.
One thing I want to make sure we focus on, and shortly we'll see if we can take a few questions from the audience, but one thing pretty notable about that team, amazing about that team, was 6 Hall of Famers on defense now that Johnny Robinson finally got his due and went into the Hall of Fame over the summer. The other stat that stands out about that defense is that it gave up 20 points total in 3 postseason games that year. By way of current context, the Chiefs defense against the Patriots in the last playoff game gave up 23 points in the second half.
Well, it was actually 20 points.
20?
Oh yeah, he said, and that was by the way, to underscore your point.
6, 7, and 7.
20.
That was
Right, 20.
20 points. The 69 Chiefs gave up 20 points in the playoffs. Yeah. What you said.
I did. But this Chiefs defense
gave up more than that. Yeah.
And so 2 points here, and one really is you wouldn't get to the Super Bowl without that defense. You wouldn't have won the Super Bowl without that defense. What enabled that to be that good?
What it really starts with is that each person has to have their understanding and concept of what excellence means. How do you measure yourself? How are you being measured for others? So if I'm an African American guy, 52 years ago, I come to Kansas City. Other teams do not let people with my color have a chance to play. If I'm trying to impress my teacher, I have to think about what can I do different than other people, and maybe cause you to pay attention to me even though you might not want to. So I decided that if I eliminated penalties from the way I play, you have to view me better than the other person who has penalties, because I won't have any. Now I can get into a whole other discussion of Six Sigma, Lean Kaizen, organizational management. I'm not going to do that here. But seriously, in its own way, at that point in time, I had created my own model. So I played 11 years, had 5 penalties. If you play on my defense, you could not have penalties. Word is could not. Not accepted at all. If you thought you could, we would ask the coach to get rid of you. We care who you are, because you can't win with that. So this team, in January, someone was lined up something called offside. All right? 2 weeks ago, they played the Texans. They had 10 penalties in the first half. Denver, Frank Clark had a face mask, 15 yards. Next third down, another 15-yard penalty. Even when they scored, they had it offside. Can't win with that. So the thing I'm talking to someone over at the organization just making a chat about is, look, in January, you lost because there was a penalty. You're 6 games into the season. How can you continue to have that? Well, obviously, from a management standpoint, you have not designed a structure that causes people to understand what accountability is, for the mind to not allow you to, and this is not beating up on Frank Clark, but I'll make a point. I never had a face mask on. And the point was never, because the mind didn't allow the fingers to clasp. Seriously, if you had a motion to the helmet, your fingers would do that, because you had worked that out of your system, that takes away from your ability to win. I mean, so what happens is that the full accountability is a requirement, and I don't know whether you can get the shift in it now this much into the season, but they have an opportunity for the next 2 weeks to do something that could be like what we did. Whether they can do it, we'll only show, based on about 10 o'clock tonight.
Good word, but the accountability. coaching has or something. Of course, he's an individual. He didn't have to be. He had to be coached every day. He had his, and most of us, I think, we do the right thing on our own. And still, of course, the coach, being a leader and a coach that get rid of you and fine if you do something wrong. So we were accountable. Some people had to be taught to be more accountable, but I think Willie and I were pretty accountable when we got here.
Is that George Thomas sitting there? Mr. Thomas, would you? Okay, that's George Thomas.
Legendary groundskeeper.
Was the groundskeeper during the years that we did what we did, and his skill was viewed as the best equal to all of us. If there were something called the Hall of Fame for groundskeepers, or if there were a Hall of Fame for him and his skill in the history of this league, the man's a living legend, sitting right here with you.
Facade guy.
George, and you kicked me off that field many times, but you offered me. He had done something special to the field. He had maybe put some fertilizer on or whatever. So I was out there alone kicking, and he sees me and he comes and just yells and screams and kicks me off the field. George, what damage could I have done? An hour later, here comes 60, 70 guys that weigh 300 pounds, and they run across the field. And that's how he was. He wanted them to have it exactly right. I was scared of George.
I'll ask one more, and then let's see if we can get a couple, three from the audience. This may or may not prove to be at all a parallel, but it is of interest to me that one of the things that you guys went through to get to that Super Bowl was the loss of your quarterback for quite some time. When Len Dawson was hurt early in the season, and then Jackie Lee was hurt the next week, and then Mike Livingston came in and went 6-0 as the starter. Unproven, hadn't thrown a regular season, the ball in a regular season game since his last year at SMU. Didn't throw a ball at all in 1968. And now we have Matt Moore playing for the Chiefs. He didn't throw a ball at all last season, sat out. And that may be where the parallel ends. But I just wonder what galvanized you? What did you go through when you lost such an important part of the team?
Well, then I have well, he knows more about football than I do still.
So what happened defensively? And as I read your article this morning, and reading the article to see that in the 6 games after Livingston became the starter, the defense gave up 71 points. I knew it was in the 12 to 14 range, that the defense had understood that with a rookie quarterback, we could not allow points to be scored against us. And points meant the mid-teens. Because if it's only mid-teens, he has a chance to help us win, to get us back. But if we get above 20, it won't work. The math won't work because the fellow's too young to make it all happen. So what it did was to make us that much better. Because we had to hold it together till Dawson came back with the experience to take us through the playoffs. Because rookie couldn't do that either. So it's a single elimination tournament. So it was one that through that next 6-7 weeks, we became much, much better at understanding how to play the game, how to play every play of the game, how to take all 4.5 seconds and make it mean something, how not to be doing all the things that you see people do, all the wiggling and the dancing. Oh, no, you couldn't do that playing the basketball. No, you have to understand how the game is played. There's 35 to 40 seconds between plays. Every second you have belongs to me. It does not belong to you. You getting ready for the next 4.5 seconds to perform. Football is a 48-hour business. It's 48 hours in running time. If any of you think about your jobs that you have today, imagine if your pay is depending upon 48 hours running time, or you don't have a job next year. And that's running time. The actual time is much less than that because each play takes less than 5 seconds. So every moment must be dedicated to understanding of how to play the game and how to be a part of it. So we were able to form an ability to do that because we had Dawson out, Jack Lee's injured, Livingston's quarterback, and you figured out how to play the game.
Well, we can only hope we see a little of that tonight. One last thing I just want to add, then we'll take a couple questions, is that in talking about the big picture here, we haven't really had a chance to drill into the unbelievable stories, really, both of Willie and Jan, and how they came to be here, who they became, and you can certainly learn more about that in the book. But I think it's evident the sorts of people they are from how they are here on stage with us. So with that, I wonder if there's a couple questions from the audience. Sure. Please stand. I'm sorry.
What can we do to Otis Taylor in the Hall of Fame? Because that to me, that's the one piece I think that is missing. Because that guy's a prototype of what receivers became. And you look at his stats and they stack up so well against everybody else. I know who's our, local guy that can push on.
Did you ever hear the question about getting Otis Taylor in the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so, and perhaps not to happen, alas, after all these years?
It's difficult. I started with this. I've been on the board of trustees for Pro Football Hall of Fame for about 8 or 9 years, so it's like I'm really more of an insider than a lot of the others. But what happens is that it's a very difficult task for anybody. And the thing that happens is that as time goes on, even with Johnny Robinson, fortunately, he got in this past year. So for those of us who are trying to compare from period to period, generation to generation, I know one thing that I was able to do about 8 or 9 years ago, and a number of players in the Hall of Fame, they would ask 1 or 2 of us to opine on the senior committee, who would look at the senior players and offer our view to the senior decision makers. The thing that you found was how difficult it was when you have so many men across this league who have outstanding skill and ability that would feel as passionate for their team as you feel for your team. And with that being said, it is an extremely tough task to be one of the individuals who ends up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
And there's nothing Willie and I can really do. The process is. There's not anything we can do to really, we can nominate him, and from then on, there's nothing we can do.
But see, also, you can nominate him. He has been nominated. But anyone can nominate someone that they feel should be considered for induction in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I'll go a step further. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there was a sliver of time when one of those prototype wide receivers from the 60s was going to go in, and it wound up being Bob Hayes. And it's not just all the things that Willie and Jan said, it's also, as more offense is added to the game, it becomes harder and harder to compare those numbers. And the Chiefs, for all the innovation that Hank Stram had, did a lot of running. And so one of the issues was, did they fully take advantage of Otis Taylor's skill set? And it's sad. When Joe Posnanski was back here, he and I and Ollie Gates and some other people tried to get some interest, but Pro Football Hall of Fame voters do not like being lobbied. They don't want to hear about it. They think they know everything there is to know about football to begin with. And so it's sad, breaks my heart, but I think it's too late.
Also, when you watch him on that film, he was the most elegant athlete I think I've ever seen.
Can I tell one quick story?
I think so, but let me look to a queue in the back of the room. Do we have time for one more question after this, or is this?
Yeah, we can take one more question after Michael talks.
I'll be
Okay.
quick. This great story that Otis is holding. He catches that ball at Tulane Stadium and breaks McBee's tackle. And he's running down the sideline in front of 80,000 people. And everybody's roaring and cheering. And he distinctly hears his mother's voice yelling, "That's my baby!" I talked to Otis's ex-wife about that just to confirm it. She said, yes, and you know you're a mama's boy when you hear your mom's voice out of 80,000 people, so, sorry.
Sure, last question, then we'll wrap it up.
I was a little boy once, and I was so excited for Chiefs name because you're AFL or NFL. And my question is, can you give some insight into the camaraderie amongst the AFL teams and players and the tension between the other side of the NFL and the AFL during that time?
Could everybody hear the question? Just in case it pertains to the sense of camaraderie AFL teams have, the last of the AFL teams, and I think a way that Michael got into it in the book was, I'm not sure if you were one of the people there, Willie, but there were hugs exchanged with Jets players after they won Super Bowl III, so that was a little bit of a point of pride that the league.
There was a lot of interest from the American Football League and trying to be equal to the National Football League, but in '68, when the Jets played the Baltimore Colts in Miami, Buck Buchanan, Emma Thomas, and myself were playing in the American Football League All-Star game the next week. I'm sure Ron was there too. So we had flown into Miami to attend the Super Bowl, and the Jets were staying at the Gulf Ocean Mile Hotel in Fort Lauderdale. So we went up to the Gulf Ocean Mile in Fort Lauderdale and waited there for their team buses to arrive after the game. Neighbors stepped off the bus, saw us standing over, everyone came over and congratulated each other because they were the first one, obviously, of the American Football League teams to beat a National League team. So it was very important. It was very important in being able to establish, because the reality of even race, gender, being equal is a most important thing, all right? And being able to demonstrate that in a very expansive, broad way gives you a tremendous amount of confidence, I'm sure, that led to us being even more understanding of what was going to happen the next year.
I think that's all the time we have, and I really appreciate everybody being here, and we have a hand for this wonderful film.